Hello, everyone. My name is Braden. This is Airless Quill 9. And in today's video, we are going to talk about the Green Hag, the foul witch of the wicked wild. So, Green Hags work this bitter magic to foul all that is beautiful and pure. Whether alone or in covens of other hags, these ancient witches call on eerie forces, spreading corruption and plotting doom for those who earn their ire. Green hags are adept deceivers, and they use illusions to cloak themselves in unassuming forms, hoping to tempt innocence into peril. These hags often spirit their victims back to surreal lairs where they hold captives prisoner or cook them into monstrous meals. Green hags frequently know strange magic or forgotten secrets such as the weaknesses of villains, the locations of lost treasures, or the ways to break curses. They might trade such knowledge for rare magic or symbolic treasures. We are given a table to roll on in the 2024 Monster Manual called the Green Hag Bargains Table. This allows Dungeon Masters to inspire what a Green Hag charges for its particular secrets. In this table, a Green Hag might trade its knowledge for a bargainer's memories of a loved one, the cauldron of a rival hag, a favor to be redeemed when the hag wishes, a flower from a hidden Feywild garden, a gift given freely by a Yugoloth, or a vial filled with a ruler's tears. Some interesting options here. There's certainly other things you could also trade for a green head bargain, but these are a decent number of options so that you don't really have to think about it too hard. But with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the 2024 Green Hag stat block. And right after we look at this, we're going to talk about what changes have been made since 2014, so keep an eye out for that. So let's go ahead and get straight to it. So this is the 2024 Green Hag. They are a medium fey, neutral evil. They have an armor class of 17, +1 to initiative, 82 hit points, a speed of 30 feet, a swim speed of 30 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 18, dexterity of 12, constitution 16, intelligence of 13, wisdom of 14, and charisma of 14. They have proficiency in the following skills: Arcana with a +5, Deception with a +4, Perception with a +4, and Stealth with a +3. They have Dark Vision of 60 feet and a Passive Perception of 14. They know Common, Elvish, and Sylvan as their languages. And the Green Hag is a challenge rating 3 creature, giving it 700 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +2. For its traits, the Green Hag has 3 available. The first of these is Amphibious, which allows the hag to breathe air and water. The second is Coven Magic. This states that while within 30 feet of at least 2 hag allies, the hag can cast one of the following spells requiring no material components, using the spell's normal casting time and using intelligence as the spell casting ability, a spell save DC 11. Augury, Find Familiar, Identify, Locate Object, Scrying, or Unseen Servant. The hag must finish a long rest before using this trait to cast that spell again. Mimicry. The hag can mimic animal sounds and humanoid voices. A creature that hears the sounds can tell they are imitations only with a successful DC 14 Wisdom Insight check. And finally, we're going to get into actions. This has a multi-attack that allows the hag to make 2 claw attacks. Claw is a melee attack roll with a +6 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. On a hit, it deals 1d8 +4 slashing damage, plus 1d6 poison damage. Spellcasting, the hag casts one of the following spells, requiring no material components, and using Wisdom as the spellcasting ability. Spell save DC 12, +4 to hit with spell attacks. At will, it can cast Dancing Lights, Disguise Self with a 24-hour duration, Invisibility, which is self only, and the Hag leaves no tracks while invisible, which is quite interesting. Minor Illusion, and finally Ray of Sickness at level 3. So some pretty good spells in their repertoire. Now, I actually really liked the design aspect of this stat block. If I had one gripe about it, it's that Coven Magic doesn't also use the Hag's Charisma modifier for the Coven Magic trait, but I guess that's just a tiny nitpick. Overall, all the spells in Coven Magic are really just utility spells. I think the only one that actually might require a saving throw is Scrying, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. But overall, I actually quite like the design of this. But let's go ahead and talk about the actual changes to the stat block from 2014. So there are some interesting ones here. First off, the first change I noticed is that the Green Hag now has expertise in the Arcana skill. It used to only have a +3, now it's been upgraded to a +5, so that's an interesting addition there. Also, in the languages section, the Green Hag used to know Draconic as a language, and that has been replaced with Elvish, which I guess fits the Fae theme a little bit more, so that's really just a minor change that I don't know has a huge effect on the actual creature itself. You can always add languages to a stat block without changing its challenge rating, so that's really just something that the Dungeon Master could do at their prerogative, so I don't think that's a crazy thing to change. Coven Magic is quite different here. In 2014, there was an optional rule to where you could give a coven of 3 hags a separate spell list that had spell slots attached to it, and it was honestly a little convoluted, and it was also quite powerful. It actually changed the challenge rating of the hags in that coven because the spells in there just made them powerful. So what they seem to have done instead is they have really just allowed Coven Magic to give the Hag a lot more versatile utility spells. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I think the spells on here are very flavorful, and they really kind of buy into the narrative of the Hag having the ability to just know things. So I like the spells listed here. Also, Find Familiar, pretty good, especially if this you could have a coven of 3 hags with 3 familiars, so that could be an interesting encounter. But overall, I really like the changes to this actual trait. It's a lot easier to be run in and outside of combat, and I don't think you're actually going to be wanting to cast very many of these spells in combat, if any of them at all. So this is really just a flavorful trait to give the hag some more depth and nuance. Mimicry is, of course, the exact same as it was in 2014. But now we get to the actions, and there's some really cool changes that I really like here. First off, the Green Hag now has a multi-attack. It did not have one previously, which is quite cool to see. In addition, the Green Hag's original Claws attack in 2014 only dealt 2d8 plus 4 slashing damage. So what they have done here to the Claw is they have taken a d8 out of the slashing and they've added a d6 of poison damage, which I don't think is a crazy change here. But now what they're doing is they're making 2 of these attacks per round because of that multi-attack. So they have essentially doubled the damage potential of the Green Hag as a result of this, and I quite like that. I think that is a really good change, and I feel like that's going to make the Green Hag seem much closer to its challenge rating 3 than it did previously, because honestly, I always thought the Green Hag underperformed, and I think it's pretty apparent that that was the case since they have made this change to the claw attack, and they've also given the Hag the ability now to make 2 of those claw attacks. Also, the Green Hag now has the spellcasting action instead of a spellcasting trait, and honestly, there are a lot of changes to the spellcasting. So in 2014, the Green Hag had 2 other actions. One called Illusory Appearance, where they can make themselves appear like another person, and then Invisible Passage, which let them turn invisible, and then they left no physical evidence of their movement, and they couldn't be tracked by magic when moving in this way. So what they have done here is something pretty nice, and I actually quite like the changes that they've made here. I just noticed this as well, is that the spell casting for the Hag is now Wisdom instead of Charisma, which is a very minor change because the modifiers are both the same. So you could change it back to Charisma if you thought that was more fitting, but Wisdom honestly is just as fitting for a Hag. So what they have done here is Illusory Appearance seems to have been consolidated into just Disguise Self, and they've given it a 24-hour duration just to make it fit that trait more. And honestly, I think that's a decent trade. And then Invisibility is really cool because this replaces Invisible Passage. It still makes the Hag invisible, and they just added in the stipulation that the Hag leaves no tracks while invisible. And with that, I think it performs the exact same thing that the old trait did. So I like the additions of those, and I feel like it makes this stat block just a lot easier to run now, because you're not having to read a bunch of bots text, and you should know how Disguise Self and Invisibility works as a Dungeon Master, and now you just have some small modifications to those actual spells. So I feel like this makes the spellcasting aspect a lot easier to run. Now, there's also the additional Ray of Sickness at level 3, which I think is really cool because this is a great ranged alternative for the Green Hag, because Ray of Sickness at level 3, it deals 48 poison damage. It also gives the target the poison condition, and it's an attack roll now. So some pretty major changes there, but that is going to be a pretty decent hit if you're making a attack with Ray of Sickness. Because yeah, some creatures are resistant to poison damage, or some player characters are resistant to poison damage, but a lot of them aren't immune to the poison condition. So I think Ray of Sickness is actually very flavorful for the Green Hag. It also really buys in to the narrative of the claw attacks now dealing poison damage. So a lot of this just makes sense together, and I really approve of the addition of that, because now it also gives the Hag a ranged option as well, which it did not have previously. However, I guess it did have Vicious Mockery in 2014, but Vicious Mockery was 1d4 damage in 2014, so that wasn't very good at all. So honestly, I prefer they swapped it out with Ray of Sickness, because that just fits the deadliness of the Green Hag much better, in my opinion. So overall, I really like the stat block. I like the changes that they've done to it. This feels like a much more deadly Green Hag. I like that there's some additional damage potential now, and I feel like the Green Hag can now be a scary combatant for a low level party because now it's doing more and meeting that challenge rating 3 danger level. So that is going to be it for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'm going through every creature in the 2024 Monster Manual, so keep an eye out for those videos. Until the next one, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later.